The reason I want to put an asterisk there is because there is actually a lot of research that shows athletes that are stiffer, and I talk about that joint/tendon stiffness, not mobility, get injured more. So you have a high incidence of injury. But this is where you need to understand context, because the stiffer you make an athlete, the more force they can actually produce, typically the faster they go and the more aggressively they change direction. So the old adage of flying really close to the sun with athletes, the stiffer they get, there's actually more risk of them getting injured because suddenly everything they do is at a far higher rate. That's the acceptance that we as strength and conditioning coaches, you guys as personal trainers, or any coach when working with your athlete population, the better you get them at it, sometimes you can actually put them at more risk of injury because they're flying closer to the sun. Okay? They had a great study in the AFL where they started to use rotations. And I don't know if you follow AFL and the number of rotations, but it used to be unlimited. So unlimited rotation in the AFL, I remember one game we rolled 172 rotations. Absolute lightning. So what they found was because the rule in the field of the way they were actually acting in regards to the play, so they would slow down the play and they would try and make calls, and they'd obviously put men on the mark, they would make running through the mark illegal, all these things to try and make sure that the play didn't speed up because we were suddenly getting injuries from speed. When we started to up rotations, our speed of game just skyrocketed because everyone going on, midfielders were running on for 4 minutes, absolutely blastery, and then running off and then coming back almost like ice hockey. And there were more injuries again. So they go, oh crap, we better slow down the game. So they started to limit rotations to slow down the game. And suddenly the game started to slow down, but then players were getting more tired out there, but they were still running at the same speeds that they have been doing. And suddenly the injury rate dropped for a little bit and then went back up again because everyone started to adapt to being able to run for these times. But because they were doing a high meters a minute, but they were also adding all this exhaustion on top, the injury rates went back to where they started. And they've brought now the rotations down again, and then they've gone, oh, we need to make sure maybe if we speed the game up, we can speed the game up, which means they're going to get tired again and then it'll slow them down. So now, if you've noticed again, when they try and speed the game up, they've got only a couple of seconds to kick the ball and everything like that. And so the injury rate's gone dipped and then gone back up again because they're getting tired and they're back to trying to balance it. All the AFL do is try and speed and slow the game up to change injuries, and it always goes back to its little homeostasis. Again, I don't believe that it changes anything, but that's the battle that the AFL continue to try and have. But that's tends to what happened when we talk about a tendon response, is they certainly will dissipate and reduce muscle injury. But at the end of the day, if you get better at using your tendons, you're going to be a far more potent athlete. And they're the ones that put themselves at risk, not because they're not physically ready, but because they're running bloody quick, changing direction really powerfully, hitting people harder.